Hi, so today we're going to be going over our aggregate demand. So, aggregate demand describes the total quantity of goods and services demanded in an economy, and it's measured in terms of their market value. That means you add up the demand of all the individual markets for goods and services. So, basically, the demand that we've been going over for a single product in a single market, now we're adding all of that up. The way we do that is you'll see our formula here. Aggregate demand equals consumption plus investment plus government expenditure plus net exports, which is our exports minus our imports. And the aggregate demand curve is shown through the relationship between the price level in the economy and the output or our real GDP. So as you can see here on the chart to our left, you'll see the price level on the left as compared to our national income, our real GDP on the right. And our aggregate demand curve right here is downward sloping because it has a negative relationship with consumption, investment, and net exports. So, what does that mean? It means that as our price increases, the demand for these expenditures decreases. So, as price level goes up, I'm going to consume less. As price level goes up, I'm going to invest less and I'm going to have less net exports. But if price level goes down, I'm going to consume more because I can buy more with my dollars. Same as price level goes down, things are cheaper, so I can afford to invest more. And these are, in other words, different effects. So our wealth effect, which is what we just described as consumption, is that as my price levels rise, my wealth or how many goods and services I can afford to buy with my paycheck goes down. So I'm going to consume less. And this is assuming that my wage does not increase. So the prices go up, but I'm still earning the same amount. I'm going to be able to buy less. My interest effect, which is my investment portion of this, means that as prices increase, the interest rate also increases. So if I originally had a 3% interest rate on a loan, it's now a 7%. I have to pay more back in interest. So it's actually more expensive for me to borrow that money. Therefore, the likelihood that I'm going to take out a loan to invest as a business decreases. And lastly, my foreign purchases effect, which is my net exports portion of this, as domestic prices increase, foreign prices are cheaper in comparison. So whereas I could buy a car in the United States for $50,000, I could import one from China for $20,000, which means I'm probably going to import and my overall exports are going to go down. So imports increase, exports decrease. Government purchases do not contribute to the negative downward slope of aggregate expenditure or aggregate demand because most government spending is autonomous, meaning that it happens every year, regardless of what's going on in the economy, because there are purchases that have to be made regardless of the price. So if a road has to be built, if money has to be put in education, it doesn't matter how much those materials cost to do, it has to be done. So the government is going to spend that money anyways and either go into a deficit or not, but the price level doesn't actually affect that expenditure. Another thing affecting this is movement versus shift, and it's very important to understand. So if my overall price level changes, there will be a movement along the demand curve. You can see this in our first chart on our right. We have our original price point and then a movement. So our price level dropped, and then my second price point with an increased demand at a lower price. However, if it's a non-price factor that makes a change, there's a shift of my demand curve, left or right. A negative price factor, such as I have bad expectations of the future economy, high interest rates, there's less exports and more imports. That's going to shift my demand curve left. Something that has its positive effect, I have good expectations on the economy. My wealth is increased. I have lower interest rates. That's going to shift the demand curve right because now there's more demand at that price point. And then the factors affecting the aggregate demand shifts for consumption, taxes on consumers, interest rates, wealth, expectations of future incomes. All of these affect whether or not I'm going to consume more at that given time. Government expenditures is obviously just government spending. Whether they increase or decrease depends on that shift. my investment, my taxes on my capital, interest rates, and my business confidence. Whether or not I'm confident that my business is going to succeed in the future is going to affect whether or not it shifts right or left. And then my net exports, if there's economic growth abroad that demands more resources from my domestic economy, if the exchange rate of the dollar is high or not, if there's foreign goods that we suddenly have an affinity for, or if trade policies increase tariffs, decrease tariffs, or whatnot, that is all going to affect whether or not there is an increase or a decrease, so a shift right or a shift left of my demand curve overall. And that is it for this portion of aggregate demand and their movements versus shifts.